So one of the more pointed questions I recently received was this: Frank, what exactly is wrong with putting more housing near transit? Is the real problem that you might attract the wrong people? Is your prejudice showing? Gotta tell you, that's a fair question to ask, but it deserves a thoughtful answer, not an angry one, and not a 30-second answer in a Facebook comment. So today I want to respond to that question, and then I'm going to answer a second viewer who asked me to do something that at this stage of my life may be completely beyond my capabilities. Hi, I'm Frank Spencer, Mr. Chatsworth, and I read comments on my videos and shorts even when the questions are challenging or occasionally a little uncomfortable. And from time to time, I want to bring some of those questions here to the channel because I suspect other viewers may be wondering the same thing. The first question came from Cliff S. after he watched a short taken from my recent SB 79 video. Cliff asked, "Do you really have a problem with it? If so, why? Seems like a good idea to me. Put housing near the transit stops. What's wrong with that? Is it because they attract the wrong people? Your prejudice is showing. How many single-family neighborhoods have transit stops now? And how many residents use them?" So for you, Cliff, let me begin with the most important part of my answer. No, my concern isn't about attracting the wrong people. And no, my position is not based on prejudice. What my concern actually is it's about land use, neighborhood compatibility, and the consequences that can occur when the permitted scale of development changes dramatically around existing homes. Real estate is built around expectations, and when someone buys a home in a low-density single-family neighborhood, that decision is usually based on more than the house itself. They're also buying into the surrounding environment, the level of density, the height and scale of nearby buildings, traffic patterns, parking availability, privacy and noise, and all other overall characteristics of the neighborhood. These things are part of the value proposition. So I want you to imagine that you purchase a single-story home in a low-density residential neighborhood. Then imagine waking up one morning to learn that the property next door may be redeveloped with a 5-story building. That building may look directly down into your backyard. It may bring more vehicles, delivery traffic, service vehicles, lighting, noise, and pressure on the street parking. Even when the proposed use is residential rather than commercial, the difference in the scale can be enormous. The question is not whether the future residents are the right people or the wrong people. The question is whether placing a large multi-story development directly beside an established no-density neighborhood creates consequences for people who actually live here. Those are two entirely different discussions. Historically, zoning has been one of the tools communities use to separate uses and building scales that may not work well together. We generally would not place an industrial operation in the middle of a residential street, and we would not normally place a major commercial office building on an interior single-family lot. And we typically use height limits, setbacks, parking requirements, and density restrictions to reduce conflicts between very different types of development. Those regulations are not automatically an expression of prejudice. They're an attempt, sometimes imperfectly, to create predictability and compatibility. SB 79 changes that equation in qualifying transit areas. Under the law, some parcels that currently permit low density or single family housing may become eligible for substantially denser development because of their proximity to qualifying transit. That does not mean that every house near every bus stop will be replaced by an apartment building, but it does mean that some homeowners can no longer assume that the development pattern around them will remain similar to what existed when they bought their homes. And that's something they deserve to understand. Chatsworth's already seen this conflict. Here, this is not an entirely theoretical discussion. The Lumina was constructed on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, a commercial zone. It's a 5-story permanent supportive housing development with 55 apartment units, including units serving formerly unhoused veterans. The project was built on a commercial property adjoining an established residential neighborhood. And the issue I'm raising here is not whether formerly unhoused veterans deserve housing. They do. They absolutely do. The issue is the physical relationship between a 5-story building and the single-story homes immediately behind it. Some of the windows and elevated areas of that development overlook neighboring residential yards. Homes that previously enjoyed a very different level of privacy and separation now sit beside a structure of dramatically different scale. Exactly what we're talking about. And that creates a legitimate question about privacy, visual intrusion, traffic, parking, marketability, and overall general quality of life. We can support the mission of providing housing and still ask whether a particular site, building design, height, or setback appropriately protects the surrounding neighborhood. These positions, they're not mutually exclusive. Now, whenever this subject comes up, someone will say those homeowners have expensive houses. They can afford it. And I don't believe that's a fair assumption. First, owning an expensive home does not necessarily mean someone has large amounts of disposable cash. They may have purchased decades ago. They may be retired. Their equity may represent most of their lifetime savings. And second, many of the neighborhoods potentially affected by future density changes are not wealthy neighborhoods at all. Some consist of smaller, older, entry-level homes owned by working families. For those homeowners, the house may be their primary financial asset. If a major development makes the property less desirable to future buyers, they may not be able to absorb that loss. They may not be able to sell and simply move elsewhere again. So the argument that neighborhood impacts do not matter because certain owners can supposedly afford them, well, I think it misses the larger point. Housing policy should consider both the people who need housing and the people whose homes and neighborhoods are being changed by that policy. The question is housing near transit a bad idea? No, I don't think so. As a general principle, placing housing near transportation, I think it can make a great deal of sense. It can reduce commuting distances, it can give residents additional transportation options, and it can place housing closer to employment, services, and existing infrastructure. The concern is not the basic concept. The concern is whether a statewide rule should impose a substantial increase in height density without enough attention to the unique conditions surrounding each site. How close are the existing homes? What setbacks will be required? How will privacy be protected? And where will residents and visitors park? Can the surrounding roads handle the additional traffic? Are schools, utilities, police, fire, and emergency services, are they prepared for that additional higher density? And will people living beside the development have any meaningful voice in the process? Those are reasonable questions, and asking them is not about prejudice, it's about planning. I've worked in real estate for more than 3 decades. During that time, I've watched neighborhoods evolve, zoning change, commercial corridors expand, and development decisions affect the everyday lives of real people. Some changes improve communities, some create new opportunities, and some, well, they produce consequences that were either underestimated or dismissed. My position is not that nothing should ever change. My position is that change should be evaluated carefully and honestly. It should account for the people who need housing, and it should also account for the people who already live next door. It's not an anti-housing position, it's a balanced housing position. Now for the second question, and I gotta tell you, it's considerably easier to answer. After watching my video, 3 Rental Laws California Landlords Must Know, one viewer asked, God, could you please speak faster? And my answer is, I'm sorry. But at my age, I'm fairly certain my speech pattern is set in stone. My lips may be capable of moving more quickly, but I'm not completely confident that my brain would keep up with them. So I'm afraid that what you see is what you get. I'll continue trying to be clear. I'll continue trying to respect your time. And when appropriate, I may even try to pick up the pace a little. But turning Mr. Chatsworth into an auctioneer? Probably not in the cards. I appreciate both of these questions. One gave me the opportunity to explain a serious position in greater depth, and the other gave me an opportunity to accept something about myself that I probably cannot change. And that's what I want these viewers' questions in the videos to be about. I want to have a real conversation. So leave your questions in the comments, whether they involve real estate, housing laws, landlords, HOAs, neighborhood development, or even the speed at which I speak. I read them. And your question may be the one I answer in a future video. Now, if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And until next time, I'm Frank Spencer, Mr. Chatsworth, and I'll see you around the neighborhood.